And that occurred back in 1439 at the Council of Florence. What were those institutions? Well, on the one hand, the conception of the modern nation-state republics under the government of natural law. If you've been listening to Nigel Farage speak in the European Parliament, very, very often he will speak about the meaning of nation-state republics. Don't take that concept lightly. It's the most important concept developed over the last 650 years of our history. And second is the central role of the fostering of scientific and technological progress as the mandate given to the Republic. Now, these two ideals represent a crucial argument. Their existence as institution in any part of Europe changed everything in all of Europe because these institutions increased the rate of development of per capita and per square kilometer of mankind over nature. So no nation could afford not to progress, not to develop for the fear of being left hopelessly behind. And the first success occurred in France with Louis XI, who doubled per capita income of France and defeated all of France's enemies. Louis XI's success sparked a chain reaction in other nations, beginning with England with Henry VII and also elsewhere. Now, another key idea to come out of Council of Florence, which was later implemented in the United States, is a universal principle of general welfare, on which all of modern civilized society is based. Now, general welfare doesn't mean a useless bum sitting on a couch eating a pizza, slobbering all over himself, watching television while he's waiting for the government check to arrive. It is a question of immortality. What's the intention of the existence of man and government? It's to provide for the welfare of future generations of mankind, to ensure survival as a species. The principle of the general welfare, as expressed in the summation in the preamble of the Federal Constitution of the United States, is the fundamental law. So how is it related to today? And I have another couple of minutes to go and I'll finish and you can ask me questions. You see, the people such as the Bilderbergers, what they want is an empire. That's what globalization is, just another word for an empire. And too many people believe that in order to have an empire, you need money. You have all heard the phrase, the money elite. But you see, money is not a determinant of wealth and the economy. Money doesn't make the world go around. Money has no intrinsic value. Human mind affects that development. And this is how we, the people, and mankind is measured. This is the true meaning of immortality. What separates us from animals is our ability to discover universal physical principles. It allows us to innovate, which subsequently improves the lives of people by increasing the power of man over nature. You see, what Bilderberg are doing right now in the world economy, they're destroying it on purpose. Now, this isn't the first time either. This was already done in the 14th century. We're talking about the New Dark Age. 30% of the population then was wiped out. And one of the things we're seeing right now, the concepts of zero growth, zero progress, these are not new concepts. Bilderbergers and their cohorts, they know exactly what they're doing. Back in 1973, Club of Rome came up with a paper called The Limits to Growth. CFR, Council of Foreign Relations, that's the American cousin to the Bilderberg group, they came up with a Project 1980s paper promoting controlled disintegration of the world economy. And of course, Bilderberg themselves, in the mid-1990s, came up with a very interesting concept, demand destruction. Now, how do you destroy demand? Well, you destroy demand by destroying the world economy on purpose. If you go back to the Great Depression, it really wasn't a Great Depression at all. It was simply a transfer of wealth. Okay, the Great Depression was not an event that wiped out American capitalists. Okay. I've been told that about a minute ago. You see, we're talking about the question of leadership and the question of immortality. All of the leaders of society, especially in times of crisis, are leaders because they measure up to some approximation of that standard. We're talking about a greater good for humanity. Now, I'm not talking about a scientific problem or economic problem, but rather immorality question, a question of immortality. Do we as nation states, as people of the planet, believe in the future of mankind? And what kind of future will that be in 100, 200, or even 500 years from now? Do we have a right to dream? And if we have a sense of purpose for being here, then the bad guys simply can't win. And finally, in closing, I'm talking again about nation-state republics. We should be a fraternity of nations, of sovereign nation states, united by a common purpose for humanity. And until we can bring mankind into the age of reason, history will be shaped in actuality, not by the wills of masses of humanity, by mere handful who, for the purposes of good and evil, steer the fate of mankind, generally as herds of cows are steered to and from the pasture, and occasionally also to the slaughterhouse. I'll stop right now and welcome your questions. Thank you very much.
Just before I take questions, and I would probably clear up half of the questions I'm going to get, I'd like Daniel to say a few words about the relationship between the Bilderberg group and the EU institutions and the personnel within the EU institutions who have power. So maybe if you could come up perhaps half the questions. Could you give us a few words on that, please, Daniel?
As I said before, Bilderberg is part of the world elite. None of the institutions, none of the individuals who form part of the Bilderberg group, be they from France or from Germany or from Ireland, none of the people who are part of the Bilderberg group are actually working for the good of the nation. I already have the list of agenda items which was leaked to me from inside Bilderberg in a circle. The Bilderberg meeting starts the day after tomorrow in Spain. And one of the agenda items on that list is the destruction not only of the American economy, but actually the destruction of the United States dollar. Now, can I have that piece of paper with the list of items, please, just for a second? Some of the items on the Bilderberg agenda, which starts the day after tomorrow, is will the euro survive? Developments in Europe. Euro's exit strategy on hold, question mark. So, and finally, the last question, the future of US dollar, alternative scenarios. Now, if the American dollar plunged, the collapse of fictitious massive outstanding dollar-denominated internal credit brought about by either devaluation or a hyperinflation, or what nominally United States dollar-denominated obligations would in itself prompt the sudden collapse of the entire world physical economy. Now, do American attendees to Bilderberg Conference understand this? Of course they do. Do the French attendees to Bilderberg Conference know this? Of course they do. What about the German attendees? Of course they do. Then why aren't they representing their nation states and fighting for the betterment of their cultures? Because they're traitors. They don't work for their countries, they work for Bilderberg. And Bilderberg idea is, again, not one world government, but rather the creation of one world company limited. And that's incompatible with the idea of nation-state republics. So anybody who attends Bilderberg, such as Barroso and Trichet and Van Rompuy, they're enemies of humanity.
Any questions, please? Michelle, please, in the blue.
I'm from Spanish news, from Spanish national radio. I'm sorry for my English because it's not so good. Maybe I misunderstood you a bit, but if I well understood, you said, apparently you suggest that the European Union is some kind of, and especially the European Monetary Union is some kind of a product of this conspiration of Bilderberg Group. At the same time, you are suggesting that the crisis now is a production of this Bilderberg Group. I think there's a clear contradiction because one of the victims of this crisis is the euro. So
I don't quite understand the question.
Yeah, you are suggesting that the euro, the European coin, the European coin, is a product of this Bilderberg Group.
I'm gonna explain to you. I think not. I'm not sure if I understand completely, but I'm gonna try to answer it. Now, look at Greece as an example. What they're trying to do is blow up the system by instead of allowing Greece to.
I prefer to ask my question because you are suggesting at the same time, tell me yes or not, that the euro is a product of this Bilderberg Group and that the crisis now is also artificially agreed that
no, I'm not suggesting that at all, because as I said in the very beginning, you don't have a boogeyman who controls the world economy from behind the scenes by a set of strings. I'm going to give you an example of Greece. What they're trying to do is they're blowing up the system. Instead of allowing Greece to reorganize its money system, they're imposing the Greeks be used that the Greek debt be bailed out by Europe. But the debt is, that debt is worthless. It's garbage. It's monopoly money. It's not real money. The Greek debt is nothing. So asking Europe, which is going through its own financial meltdown, to absorb an unpayable debt, which the Greeks, by the way, can never ever repay, means you're going for sure to destroy Europe. And that's needless to say is being done by the people who are working inside Bilderberg, not by the institution itself, by a lot of interests who are working with and also outside of Bilderberg. And also, it is being done on purpose because nobody, not even Barroso, with all due respect to him, is absolutely intellectually challenged, or Jean-Claude Trichet, possibly not understand that this is being done.
Okay, can I have one question, please? And the journalist, you state your name and your media identity. This man in blue, please.
In italiano, Alberto Argenzio dell'agenzia ANSA. Vorrei una conferma del fatto che domani, la riunione che inizia dopodomani, ci saranno Barroso, Trichet, Van Rompuy e da quando sono loro legati a Bilderberg e in che condizioni?